Howdy folks, and welcome back to Bridgetown Abridged. It's said that the only things that one can be sure of in life are death and taxes, and as I write this in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, there's a shocking amount of the former, and if you've cracked open your May 2020 Voter's Guide, you'll notice some of the latter, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. We have two proposed taxes, one which is focusing on addressing homelessness in the city, that's a new tax, and one that's an old tax to be renewed, that's about addressing our roads. So let's jump right into it. Measure 26209 reads, shall Portland renew 4-year 10 cents per gallon fuel tax for maintenance, paving potholes, and safety, crossing lighting and sidewalks? If you remember, in 2016, Portland voters approved a 10 cents per gallon fuel tax. In practical terms, this tax will cost you about $1.50 at the gas station whenever you fuel up if you have a standard-sized car, or around $5 per month on average. This measure seeks to renew that tax for an additional 4 years and is estimated to bring in $74.5 million. Obviously, though, his estimates are a little bit out the window given that the coronavirus is preventing a lot of people from driving frequently. The funding that it does raise, however, would continue to be dedicated to street repair, maintenance, and safety projects, including paving, pothole repair, sidewalk, and safety improvements. They have proposed specific investments which I've included on the screen here for you to view. Mostly a lot of money for street repair for paving and filling in potholes, which I know that we all know about, and a little bit of money for things like the new Greenway project that they've been working on so hard. Since 2016, the current tax has raised about $76 million for our roads. In 2019 alone, the tax provided for 300 new ramps for the disabled, 58 improved intersections, 53 new crosswalks for schools, 40 lane miles of new or improved pavement, and 370 base repairs to our pavement. And all of that was overseen by the Fixing Our Streets Oversight Committee, which reports on the project's progress annually. Hopping right into the arguments in favor for this measure, they're pretty standard, As I can tell by the potholes near my house, and I bet you can tell by the potholes near yours, the roads aren't going to fix themselves. The measure funds safety improvements, which can save the lives of people in our city. Spending money now usually saves you from spending money later. It's in no way a regressive tax because the people who drive more pay more, and there's even a separate heavy vehicle tax that makes sure that heavy commercial vehicles like trucks are taxed more. And the tax dollars that are spent are overseen by an auditing committee, so you can be assured that they will be well spent. And here we can see a list of the proponents who are in favor of the bill. You can see a large group of local politicians in here, as well as a lot of local newspaper editorial boards, as well as some local businesses and organizations. I have to admit, I didn't find the arguments against this bill very compelling personally, the main ones being your standard taxes are bad and the government is bad at spending money. The only one that was really unique and I think a little ironic was a criticism based on the 2019 audit, which came in fairly critically of the Portland Bureau of Transportation. It mainly stated that the job started late and that the Portland Bureau of Transportation did a poor job of collecting upon the heavy truck tax. But since that audit came in critically, some key changes have been made to the program, and also that's the point of an auditing committee is so that you can make changes like this. And as well, none of the organizations opposing this really proposed any alternate solutions presented for fixing our roads, so I'm not really sure what they expect us to do beyond this. The opponents to this measure will be pretty familiar to you if you read the voters pamphlet. It's the Taxpayers Association of Oregon and the Cascade Policy Institute. I should really make a separate video about both of them. There's some pretty interesting information when you dig into it. So that about wraps up Measure 26209. Moving on to Measure 26210, you may have seen this one in the news a bit more lately because there's a little bit of controversy surrounding the measure. Measure 26210 reads, should Metro support homeless services, tax income over $200,000/$125,000 joint/single, profits on business with income over $5 million. So in its base text, it's not very understandable, so let's break that apart. The summary for the bill states that it will fund supportive housing services to prevent and reduce homelessness in Washington, Clackamas, and Multnomah counties within district boundaries. And it prioritizes services to address the needs of people experiencing or at risk of long-term or frequent episodes of homelessness, or in other words, the people in our community who need the help the absolute most. And now on to how the tax is applied. So the idea is that the tax is applied to two different groups. It's a 1% income tax on households with income over $200,000, or on individuals who are earning over $125,000 by themselves. And there's also a 1% business profits tax, but that's only applied to businesses who have more than $5 million of revenue. It also specifically calls out that getting funding for homelessness services is a matter of metropolitan concern, so it's not just a Portland problem or a Washington County problem, but it's everybody in the metro area's problem. And it directs regional funding to local service agencies, so while the Metro is funding for it, it's going to target areas that need it the most. And it also requires community engagement to develop localized implementation plans, so the community at large will be helping in organizing this. It also allocates funds to counties by estimated revenue collected within each county. So the money raised in Multnomah County goes to Multnomah, the money raised in Washington goes to Washington, etc. It also establishes a community oversight committee to evaluate and approve local plans and monitor program outcomes and uses of funds. So this is a great way to audit the use of the funds to make sure that everything goes the way that we all would hope it would. It also requires the creation of a tri-county homeless services coordination plan, as well as performance reviews and independent financial audits. It also makes sure that no more than 5% of the money raised by it can go to administration and oversight costs, and it requires voter approval to continue the tax beyond 2030. Now, I know that I usually do the arguments for first and the arguments against second, but most of the arguments for are responding to the arguments against, so I'm going to get all crazy and mix things all up and do them backwards today. So there's a decent number of arguments against this measure. People have argued that it's been rushed out to make the May ballot. It's been said that it's unclear where exactly the money will be going and what percent will be spent on administrative costs, as well as what the logistics are for actually collecting the tax. And as well, there's been a generic argument made that the economy is in a dire condition due to coronavirus, and adding any new taxes on businesses that are already stretched thin will make it even harder for them to survive. The opponents include our good friends at the Taxpayers Association of Oregon and the Cascade Policy Institute, but they also include the Northwest Grocery Association and the Oregon Small Business Association, as well as the Oregonian Editorial Board and the Portland Tribune, though the Oregonian Editorial Board specifically said that they would like to see a more detailed version of the November ballot, and that they're in support of the measure in spirit, if you will. Now, if we hop into the arguments for, you can see how they're largely a response to the arguments against. And I'd like to start with a quote from the Willamette Week Editorial Board that I thought was especially poignant. They said, "Never before has life looked so difficult for the people on the streets of Portland. Either they're someone that our region cares about, or they aren't." So in essence, the argument is that we need everything to combat COVID-19, and that people who are experiencing homelessness right now can't socially distance themselves, and so they're going to need every bit of help that we can give them right now. It's also argued that the tax money is going to go straight to existing permanent housing solutions that have already proved themselves to be credible, so we know that the money is going to be well spent, even though it's not specifically clear exactly to which organizations it's going right now. The argument that the tax is going to sink small businesses also falls a little flat on its face, because it's only going to affect businesses with over $5 million in revenue, which exempts 94% of all businesses in the Portland metropolitan area, as well as that the tax only affects high-income families and individuals who are the least likely to be seriously hurt by the current financial crisis. And now we can move on to a list of proponents for the measure, which was a pretty long and various list, so I ended up cutting it down a little bit. You can see both local, state, and federally elected Oregon officials, as well as a lot of local organizations, as well as the editorial boards of the Mercury and the Willamette Week. And if you go to the We Are Here Together website, you can see a more comprehensive list that might have even been updated since I put this episode out. And so that concludes today's discussion of Measures 26209 and 26210. I hope it gave you some clear ideas of the arguments on both sides and gave you a good idea of who to vote for. I'd like to thank everyone for coming and checking out my latest episode. You should click on my channel and check out some of my older episodes. I hope to upload some more of these videos soon. Things in my life have really changed around a lot that gives me kind of more of an availability to do these again more often. And as well, if you have an extra $1 or $2 in your pocket, I know that our local newspapers are really struggling in this time due to the lack of advertising for local events and such, and so I, for instance, have started giving a little bit of money every month to the Willamette Week and the Portland Mercury just to kind of help bolster them through this really difficult time for them. That's all I've got for now, so thanks and have a wonderful day.